Don't get me started on that. It's so annoying. It is so annoying because, as it's been said, oh hello, and oh they're all wanting to join now, and they're all coming in late. It's just as we're joining, I'm on my phone, and the power's about to go off. Evening, everybody, and good afternoon, good morning, good evening to whoever the guests, well, people watching might be in the world. Are we all here? I lost everyone now. No, we're all here. Yeah, what a week! What a week! But let's start. Let's start off with Lucas going to convince us that remote ID is the most excellent and wonderful idea. And,
I agree.
And
I agree.
Oh, blast! It's going to go like
Never
that.
Ever convince me. No.
So, there we go. There's the light.
There's always one. There's always one in the crowd.
Absolutely.
It started much earlier than I thought.
It started much earlier. I think it's hardly started. And Craig, I've got to ask: have you got gripping hands as well? You've got eagle eyes, but have you got gripping hands?
You're showing your age there, mate.
Aye, steady on. You're
action,
right, though.
man.
Hello.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
I'll say hello to everybody in the comments. I can't type back when I'm on my phone. I don't know why. So, Luca, tell us about your company, tell us about your product, and tell us why you're not the work of the devil. It's all a bit strong, sorry.
So, hello, everyone. My name is Lukáš. I'm actually one of 3 co-founders of small Czech Republic-based company called Dronetag. And we started developing remote ID systems. And we actually started developing them even before they were called remote ID systems. So the idea originally was not to bring something as a pure evil on the market. We originally tried to bring a solution that people would actually enjoy using. And in those days, this might sound ridiculous, but I was doing some drone operations from 2013, and I always had a fear of flying close to airport or other pilots. So I thought it would be a great idea if we can develop a system where people can actually see each other. And now we are 2023. We call it remote ID. And people are going nuts. They simply don't want to hear about it. They think everyone is trying to spy on them, murder them, and let's do this.
To jump in there, though, it's because that said like that is slightly facetious. I know you're having a bit of fun there, but it's a genuine concern, and it isn't speculative, because we've seen in the UK already a guy pull a gun on an operator that was operating legally, having said, I've been trying to shoot it. And this is the UK, and it was genuine anger. And we've seen it with quite a few operators, genuine anger. They're doing nothing wrong. And all it takes is the media. You see, quickly moving ahead to mention Dublin, we've seen a scare that's going out now. So we've got more negative press. Which we'll to talk about later, but an operator has actually gone on to the news and just thrown the Irish industry under a bus, adding to scaremongering, putting out negative information into the press, and all that then does have an impact back on operators. So if remote ID, the issue people have with it, and it is a fair issue, because like at the moment with Aeroscope, that gives out all your information, but it's the police that see it. So we know, okay, there has been some issues with it, but by and large, that shouldn't be happening. DJI do have processing in place, and it should be genuine people getting it, and it should be the police. And it's the problem here that any NIMBY, someone that's just, and there are a lot of people that just have a paranoid hatred for drones because of the media, have got that information. And all it takes is one Karen on Facebook that says, I have seen a drone near the school. I hear all drone users are paedophiles, and there will be a group of people going out there to batter that person for them doing nothing wrong. So that's, yeah, I had to jump in with that because it's that is the gripe that many of us have, and I don't think it's an invalid gripe, nor is it mitigated that I've seen.
No, I think it's interesting as well, Ian, in it, because the problem is we have to separate off the issues with the rules versus the issues with manufacturers also trying to put it out there. You know, if you take into account, we've now got, I think, you know, we have the Cube has Pixel. Philip's got a starting of it in his new GPS module. You've now got the new module from these guys, which is actually super interesting. Just not what I actually really like is not only how small, but how cheap it is. We're talking $49. If we look at some of the other stuff, everything up till now has felt a rip-off. Based as someone who I'm a tech person, the reality is it's a Bluetooth module with software. If we're with some interface I/O, that's what these are. You could have a Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, but look, it's at best it's a glorified dongle, let's just say, and we've seen them at like hundreds and hundreds of pounds. Yet now we're starting to see the hardware pricing come down. There is obviously the same concerns of today that we discussed 3-4 years ago, Gary, when we first started shouting about this. Is the problem for me with remote ID is the very simple pilot location. I don't care about the aircraft. I don't care that that data is accessible publicly. The bit I care about is the takeoff point. That because that puts additional risk that doesn't need to be there. Yeah, now we've got to be fair though, because Lucas didn't invent remote ID. He's just providing a solution, and you can understand from a business perspective, it's a great opportunity. You got a product, you make it, give people what they want for a reasonable price. Success, fantastic. But it is kind of like painting "Kick Me" on your back when you're flying, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's in it, and it's and look, for commercial operators, look, we've said many times, half of us are probably going to set up a network that can track this, so we can look, it's all going to get data logged, it's all going to get tracked. However, the big fundamental remote ID still remains the fact of we're putting potentially the pilot at risk. Flying alone will become riskier.
But you've always got a spotter, Ian.
You've always got your spotter for FPV. For FPV.
The thing I don't understand is Lucas said you can enjoy using it. How could you enjoy using remote ID?
So that's the early phase where before it was called remote ID and the rules were in place. And you can imagine a situation, me 12 years old doing the RC modeling and just to want to kind of reach out to other pilots around, but you are not aware of them flying, etc., etc. So I thought our product would be initially some kind of community thing that you could be also able to chat with other pilots. But once it turned into a rule, we completely dumped this idea because that would be a madness.
Now you've got one that goes with the Pixhawk, the Cube, and so forth. Do you have one? You're going to have a true broadcast module that just sticks on the side of a model aircraft or a quadcopter without a flight controller in it?
So at this stage, we do have 2 standalone products, as Ian mentioned, pretty much rip-off products because they are kind of expensive. And we do have this big boy, which we actually call Dronetag Mini. And this is our flagship device that has both network plus direct remote ID. And even though it might seem big, it's 32 grams. And for most of the aircraft, this is intended to be used. We are speaking about Inspires, matrices, etc. It's pretty small and lightweight. But for people that don't actually need to use the network remote ID and the value of it, we do have a smaller product, which we call Dronetag Beacon. It's actually half of the weight, half of the size. And it's still how Ian would call it rip-off, because even though it's just a simple GNSS with Bluetooth, we are selling it for $199. And the main reason why we do that is we didn't build the product to be a simple GNSS tracker with Bluetooth. We are actually building the whole ecosystem around it. And by ecosystem, I mean you have a nice app that helps you to log your flights that you can export for your CAA, FAA, or whatsoever, that you can use to report your supervisor. You can also integrate the device data into your third-party application. So we recently launched a cooperation with Drone Logbook. So there are some added values, and we are not building the products to be simply remote ID, because I believe the marketing the system as a simply remote ID is not a good way how you get the pilots on board. We always try to bring something extra, and that's where we come to the pricing. Developing something extra takes R&D funds, and we are at the stage where we are a small company. We are not making millions of by selling overpriced remote ID solutions. We are building complex systems that we plan to sell for everyone. And we started with flagship products, and now we are going into more recreational and hobbyist market by offering something that's kind of bare minimum just to fulfill the rules.
If you're going to the hobby market is a very large one. Of course, the DJI market, no one's going to buy one because they've got remote ID built into the firmware and the technology of the drone itself. So you're looking at basically the hobby market where people are retrofitting older drones that need to be compliant, and surely their price is going to be a really big issue. And from a business perspective, I can see the sensibility in trying to add something with extra value and extra features and functionality, but I don't know that the hobby market will be willing to pay for that, will they? And the competition you're going to have at the bottom end of the market is China, where they'll knock these things out for $12.50, including free shipping and a couple of steak knives.
And funny enough, Bruce, I was about to literally, and I do get why you guys are trying to put value in, because the problem is, as you said, as Bruce just said, I was about to say, once, let's just say the Chinese manufacturers get there with an ESP32 and a few other things, they'll be knocking them out for $10, $15. And look, no one can compete in Europe on that. And building a business around that is not really viable either. It's hard because, when I was talking about the rip-off ones, I've seen them up like $500, $600, even some stuff. I think, the 50 is a nice addition. I even think the 150, if it brings value for a commercial operator, that's not terrible. $150, $200. If you can use it to export as logs and things like that, that actually is time saving, and the cost saving involved is quite good. But as Bruce says, we also need a basic solution that does cost $50, $60 with a GPS module in, maybe $70, that you could use. But whether that's something you guys will ever want to really do is another question, because at the end of the day, it's going to potentially get cloned in a heartbeat.
Are those modules self-powered, or do you need an external power source?
So at this stage, we do have 2 products I showed with a battery inside, and it can last up to 10 hours or even more in some conditions. But what Ian mentioned is the OEM module that comes with without the battery, and it's powered from the aircraft. But just a quick addition to the Chinese copies and basically flooding the market with the Chinese remote ID. I sincerely don't know if this would be happening, because there is still some kind of wall in the US and even in the Europe, which is called at this stage FAA approval. And it's not an actual certification, it's just a declaration. So you can submit basically whatever you want and you get on the list. But there is some kind of withdrawal possible from the FAA, that once someone submits that they kind of think that your solution doesn't fulfill the means of compliance you declared you fulfill, they will withdraw your declaration and they can prevent you from submitting any future ones. So
Yeah.
Yeah, go on, Ian.
I was going to say, yeah, I think the problem will end up being actually not about what's certified. I think the problem will end up being what's on AliExpress or places like this for like $35 or $20. Someone will pick it up. It may not be compliant, it may not be legal, but the average Bobby on the beat who's on the street is just going to look at it and go, oh yeah, there it is. And it's going to be, that is the problem. As you say, there is some securities in the FAA and Europe as well with the ASTM standard on the serial number and things like that. It has to comply with, doesn't it? But I think the problem will become how users will separate real, genuine, certified products versus a Bluetooth module they can buy off the internet that says remote ID on it, because we all know that's going to happen.
The other thing too is that the FAA is going to. The FAA is going to have enough of a compliance problem.
I'm making this is a matchbox size one. Because if
that's no match for mine. Mine's a little lighter.
Oh, very, very good. I hate having to compliment you, but that was brilliant, Bruce. But let's face it. If you're going down that route, Ian, I suppose you're thinking that Bobby will see it on his smartphone. But otherwise, if he's just looking for a device, he might well just be a little box on here. But that speaks really to what my biggest gripe about this is I hear Luca's original concept and idea, and that was a good idea, but we've morphed into something that's supposed to be for safety and security. It doesn't increase aviation safety and security, and it doesn't do a lot for airfields and a lot else. So I do wonder the point of it, and sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I wouldn't. Does it improve safety? Well, indirectly, it might do, just simply because what it allows is if you have an operator using a drone that's close to an airfield and you want to be able to determine who is operating that drone, then it may lead you to them, but it doesn't directly improve safety because it's not like a feature that you use for beyond visual line of sight. I mean, there's some interesting legal arguments about remote ID functionality anyway, because an interesting parallel is if you look at the general aviation community in the UK, so these are private pilots, PPLs, who are flying around in Cessna 172 type aircraft. They've got no legal requirement to use transponders. So in other words, electronic conspicuity that says I am here. What that does is that reduces their ability to interact with other traffic. And they're quite protective of that right to the extent that they've got a strong lobby elsewhere. And similarly, trying to introduce rules which mandate remote ID in drones domestically is going to be quite challenging because these sort of lobbies have got quite a lot of power, particularly in the, it's difficult for me to comment about the United States, but civil liberties particularly are really important to in the US.
Well, they are, but we've been banging the gong trying to warn them for years, and people just seem to have ignored it, and it's just arrived. It seemed for a lot of people, oh my word, it's just arrived this year, and that's that. They haven't noticed it coming, which doesn't make us big or clever. It just, I don't know what it means. And I have a horrible feeling the same thing is going to happen in England. So you say about civil liberties and people getting upset, but I have a feeling it's going to happen, and then people are going to suddenly wake up and it'll be there.
I'm just wondering if at any stage the UK government might go down the road, or any governments in EASA or around the world might go down the pathway of making them mandatory in all of the systems that may operate in a particular jurisdiction, because that then limits the ability of your average user to actually go out and use. And then it's a bit like driving a car, isn't it? You have to have certain things in place, like a license, insurance in the UK, MOT and car tax and things like that. And if you don't have them, then you can be, you can be held legally responsible for that. But getting to that point is because let's face it, the real benefit of these is if everyone participates, because it's mandated that the remote ID functionality is built into every single drone that you can possibly buy. But we're way off that. And I know that that's Lucas's nirvana, I suppose, where everything is mandated and all of a sudden you've got a massive market share, which I really hope you works for your company at some stage. But I think there's this is a
Well,
sort
I
of
mean, again, to be fair to Luca, he wasn't part of rolling out the regulations that have arrived. He just happened to be making something that was on the way to this product. So I'm going to ask you, Luca, what would you like to have seen happen? Would you or if you dare say it, I suppose, but was your company all for transmitting the position of the pilot, for instance?
My wish is that we simply build products that people will love to use, and it doesn't really matter if it is a remote ID. We are working on a few others. On behind the scenes, we still target on a systems for a low-level airspace. So, as someone else mentioned here, e-conspicuity for manned aviation. So we are actually working on some device for manned aviation, and by manned aviation I mean paragliders, balloons, or whatsoever. And the main idea is basically bring solutions for safe low-level airspace. Now you can argue that it's already safe and they are not needed, but basically to get involved and contribute to something that will bring some value. And even though we would be able to prevent one of possible accidents or risks that we can again argue whether they would happen with remote ID or without, I would be very happy if we can contribute to basically safety of drone and manned operation in low-level airspace. And that's the ultimate goal of the company.
That's a good answer, and I think it's important that we. I mean, were you even born in 1990 when ADSB came about? I think it's important that we need young companies looking far ahead at a more sustainable, more realistic electronic conspicuity for a modern digital sky. We are already relying on things that should be. Flipping ADSB should be retired already. It's so rubbish. But anyway,
yeah, but
The
Bluetooth and Wi-Fi for remote ID should be also retired even before they were mandated. That's simply something that shouldn't happen. But as a small company, as someone from the middle of Europe, living in country where most of the people even don't know where it is, you don't have such a position to influence anything. So your only role is become kind of moderator between the authorities and the pilots, and try to bring the solution that is a hassle. They don't really want to use it, but let them convince and let them believe that by even using something that contributes to the overall safety very little, still makes sense, because it not only brings the 1% of the safety, but brings some added value to their operations. So I completely agree that the technologies that ended up in remote ID could have been better, but I still believe we have to work with it as it is. There's at this stage there's nothing we can do against it. Not in the Europe, not in the US. It will not change. People complain it's easily spoofed, easily jammed. There's no authentication. I will report it to the FAA. They will change it, rewrite the rule, postpone. But you can fight against it, but I believe doing in this stage is already late. Doing it this stage, you must work on some future technology, and you basically can work on the future technology once you have some basic level acceptance of the original one, so you can show the flaws, you can show what doesn't work. And we even came up with some things to the standardization groups, that this is wrong, this shouldn't be the way how we do that. But you simply don't have influence until it's not there. Then you can say, okay guys, we see this is pretty nonsense, let's do the generation 4. It will take again 5 years, or any kind of iteration in the broadcast remote ID will now take years until it's there. But we still have an option to do it from now, because now we have the systems in place, and we can, from our position, even small company, we are already involved in such discussion, and we could be now the one who try to lobby the governments to see this is something that didn't work as expected. Let's improve it for the future generation.
Just letting Louis in. I don't know if I should. Should I let Louis in? I've let him in, I think.
Yeah,
it's very hard to run this. Yeah, it's a real conundrum. But I'm glad to hear that you are thinking ahead. that's at least one positive out of this situation. So I've got to ask, if you dare name them, who were the bigger elephants in the room then? Who really drove this RID conversation, in your opinion? Oh, am I still here?
Yeah, you're still here.
Oh,
yeah.
Maybe he's not.
I think he's blinking. I saw him blink.
Sorry, I just missed the connection for a while. Sorry.
Okay. Who, if you dare say it, who do you think drove the conversation in remote ID? I guess you don't have to name names, but who do you think drove where we got to?
Definitely. I don't want to open up any kind of conspiracy theories, but I do believe the big companies that want to do the drone deliveries and such a commercial stuff, they had influence over the remote ID speed and rulemaking. And I don't know who was really behind the scenes, but I do believe those companies who want to kind of monetize the airspace were heavily involved in the remote ID.
So I suppose, well, we'll keep finding ways to have a pop at you as we go along here now. But but that's fair answers. I mean, you've silenced Bruce, so there's some fair answers there. Then.
No, nobody silences me. No.
But let's just swing it around to Dublin then. So how would this have helped in Dublin? Exactly, Pepper. Did you hear it, Peppermint? There was something did just jump off the roof. So how would this have helped in Dublin? Would it have saved the day? Would it have proved anything?
Nope. Hey, we don't, as per Gatwick, we don't know there is a drone. Now this is a funny thing. Now the moment, I'm pretty glad there's a few people in the drone community who got involved, actually making noise this time on Twitter, to journalists and to the politicians, using all the learning from Gatwick. They can't pull the same thing again. And it's put a lot of pressure on the airport. There's already been calls for the airport to be charged for the loss of money, which has never happened before. They probably don't come at that, but the voices are already, that's been sort of published by one media channel. And you should actually show on air in a minute if you can the tweet that right now. Out.
Oh, Bruce might be able to.
Yeah, that's really good because really the impact's been really significant. So a lot of pressure has been put on the airport, and as soon as that happened, they've already backtracked on the Friday sighting, saying that was false. Now, up until yesterday, it was literally on Twitter saying it was an air traffic controller. It used binoculars. It was 100% certain it was definitely a drone. It was over this part of the over this particular building on the airport. All that put out there because it was Mark Wingard, who's normally on here, and he was being shouted down because he's saying, "Where's the proof?" And they're going, "Da, shut up." And then literally today, that's vanished. It's like, oh no, we did make a mistake. Well, how was all that nonsense coming out and being used at people? And now suddenly that's gone away. They've said though that the following 2 days they've verified those. They've not explained how they've verified them. There's still no description out there at all. This time we haven't even got it's small or it's big. The language is implying that it's small, but there's nothing. So how are they verified it? And then it just didn't look like they had a counter UAS. So I challenged out, And good thing is here is I actually got a journalist that, because he was putting in and it was all framed around like Gatwick and this, and this is what happening now in Ireland. And he gave me the full right to reply. So I completely contested that, and that was all in there. And I was like, no, the onus this time's on the airport. They've had 4 years since Gatwick to be prepared. Why haven't they got a counter drone system? Well, because they're literally putting out sighting, which suggests it's with your eyes. And then today, it was actually last night. Funny enough, at this point, I was tweeting, and I've been tweeting the Minister for Transport and the head of UAS, the Ireland's equivalent to the CAA, completely blanking me, not a reply to anything. And then the moment the airport then puts out a tweet that says, "Oh, we have got a counter drone system," and in fact, I'll see if I can find it after, and it says, "Oh, and we're asking our air traffic controllers, and we're asking our ground staff, and we're asking the pilots." And then I'm thinking, whoa. And then he took the time then to tweet that to me. And I thought, why can't you tweet any of my other points or questions? So it was just purely, he was just trying to be, I've got an answer for you. And it isn't an answer, because I did a little video thing and I've sent it on to a few journalists, and that was just my thoughts at the time. But the language doesn't work, because it's like the whole point of a counter drone system is that is your definitive yes or no, there is a drone. If your procedure is, I'm going to look at the system, and then I'm going to ask all the pilots that are taking off a landing, and then I'm going to ask all the ground staff, and then I'm going to ask all the ATC controllers, you might as well unplug that counter drone system and put it in the bin, because it isn't doing its job. What you're doing then is just saying the views of people's eyes actually take precedence over the system. So you've got to have it one way or the other. So it's either that, or what's happened is they've got aeroscope. Now, I think if they've got aeroscope, it's probably not even been permanently there. Although I've said to journalists, take photos of the antennas and you'll be able to see if it's a permanent install of aeroscope. Whether any of them take notice, who knows? But that's what I'd be doing. Shame we haven't got Eddie Mitchell there. I did actually tweet Eddie Mitchell. I said, get yourself on a plane.
You're on a plane.
Do that now. But I mean, even Eddie Mitchell said it's same MO. It just looks like another mistake. But what my thought is, maybe the police have actually got in there. Once it's got to day 2 or day 3, taken an aeroscope, and now they're bragging. So what they've done is they went to one of the journalists, and now they're going, "Oh, we've got a system that's that great. It tells us within 5 kilometers if anyone even turns on a drone straight away. Boom, that's aeroscope." That's
aeroscope,
it.
Yeah.
You have just given away that you're using aeroscope. So in fact, you haven't achieved anything, because if that is a drone that isn't DJI, it can still be coming in every day, and you're going to have to close the airport down. So you're still going to need a proper counter drone system in there. So I think that's why they've got this process of asking people, because they're saying, well, check it aeroscope. Oh, and just in case it's not DJI, we'll ask everybody else as well. But they've got themselves in a bad position if that's it there. And the trouble is, they haven't even properly prepared, because this airport, unlike, say, Gatwick, it's got masses of anger all around it. It is hated by the residents. So they built a north runway, which they weren't happy about in the first place. And then apparently they had some agreement where the air traffic had to fly in a certain angle and direction, so there wasn't noise. And it sounds like the airport didn't keep to that. So now they're getting loads of noise. And then you've got this huge protest at the moment from immigrant flights that are coming in and are going into all the hotels. And there's protests on the street and that. And so the airport's being seen as having all these problems. So you've got all these different focus groups. All these
Let me just shut down an airport again. All it takes.
Yeah, well, that's I understand.
They've had a breakthrough. Apparently, a couple outside of Gatwick have been arrested. How about that?
Yeah. Oh, hang on. Further news. Apparently, they've also arrested a former Civil Aviation Authority barrister.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, questioned him. They've questioned the head of legal at the CAA.
So that's one of the questions I asked. It's good you did that with the phone, because I even said, are these actually coming from within the airport, or is somebody calling in sightings? and closing down there. We don't actually know. No one's really answered it. They're being very, very vague, and that in itself's not a good sign. It was quite interesting, actually. The media grabbed hold of the Minister of Transport this morning, and he didn't even say we've got counter-drone because he was specifically asked. He says, I'm going to the airport to speak about what we can do, more or less than that. And his explanation was, when they said, well, why is it so hard? He goes, well, an airport's big and a drone, he implied it's small. And he goes, oh, and then the size of a drone, saying that's small. And that's not really a very good technical explanation, because if there's a proper counter-drone system on there, it doesn't matter whether it's a big or a small drone. It would still be using like your Metis, RF. It would still have, a tuned radar for drones.
I
and it would
wonder
still
if there's any for sale in the gift shops there. I wonder if there's any in the gift shops in the airport.
What's this?
The little Chinese, flying once quadcopters. Some child's just bought it in the gift shop, gone out to the viewing area and flown it over the airport. I wonder if there's any there.
I mean,
that'd be a fun.
It's a funny one, this, because of the protests around it. It's one where I'd even acknowledge, because they try to pin me down and say, "Do you think there's not a drone or there is one?" I'm not going to play that game, because all I can say is there isn't enough evidence being put out there, and I don't understand why you wouldn't put evidence out there of there being a drone. But at the same time, I'm not going to discount it, because I know there's a lot of unhappy people living around the airport. So if there was going to be any airport in the world where somebody is going to fly a drone into it, it's probably going to be that one. So, it is feasible that there's somebody with a hacked DJI. It is feasible that someone's made a self-build. But what isn't feasible, if they're doing it night after night after night and no one can come up with a description, a photo or any video. And it seems to be funny every night. It's the pattern it was going for. It should have already appeared tonight, and it hasn't. So it's a bit funny that at the moment everyone's going to the airport and saying, let's see your process. And they're going and speaking to the people and saying, are we sure there's a drone? And looking at their own process. That suddenly tonight there isn't one. So it's either what they'll do is in the end they'll say, oh, we're scared. We're going on to the news and warning about the fact it was illegal, like anyone didn't already know. They'll say we scared it away. But, we will see. I mean, if it does return, it's credible that it is a protest, but if it doesn't, again, it's going to look like Gatwick. But it's been so scary. Everyone's been commenting, operators, private messages and even publicly on Twitter, and even on Facebook, how much it has mimicked Gatwick. And the funny thing is, a lot of people are unaware of it because it hasn't had the press coverage. So it's huge on Twitter. It's all there, and it's in Ireland. Obviously, everyone's aware about it, but the news here aren't even bothering reporting about it, because I think, having seen Gatwick, I thought, well, we're not even going to report about this again unless someone's sticking some video up or proving there's a drone in the first place, because otherwise you're just sending people across to look at empty skies and just to be speculating again. So over here, it's largely gone, it's just passed by, but I've kept an eye on it and got involved in it because I want to use that experience from Gatwick and the nonsense to call out all the parallels and call out the flaws and ask the questions that need asking. So, but it is scary how it's sightings and then it's aeroscope was going to solve it, and we knew that's not going to solve it. If you're saying there's a drone there and it isn't on the system, you're always going to say it's the aeroscope's fault, even though it could just be there's not a drone there. But that's what we did at Gatwick. It was aeroscope's fault. So we're getting Falcon Shield. The Falcon Shield will prove there isn't a drone, and then we won't admit we had Falcon Shield, and we'll wrap the whole operation up and hope nobody notices. But in Ireland, they haven't got a Falcon Shield. They haven't got a plan B. But one of the points I put out there is, well, you don't have to have, because one of the pieces, one of the main sensors that you'll be using on Falcon Shield is the pan tilt zoom thermal head, and that the actual thermal head you've got on your police helicopter, it will be in a similar. It might be as good, but it's not far off. So all they need to do is get a police helicopter. But I should have said, turn the lights off on it, please, whatever you do, because we know what'll happen if they don't. But get a police helicopter up there, use the thermal. You'll be able to record video if there is a drone. You can give that to the media. But more than that as well, you can follow the drone back and arrest the pilot. And I put the video up from, which funnily enough happened a month before Gatwick, where an MPAS actually, he put the video up and said, oh yeah, we've got this illegal drone pilot, and shows you the video of them following the drone. and using the thermal. But the funny thing is, after Gatwick, the MPAS team just stopped putting up those kind of videos, which is a shame. But I do wonder if someone said, well, we better not do that anymore, because it shows everyone that at Gatwick we would have seen something if it was there, which is a shame.
I think what Gatwick did was it caused, and I'm not saying this from a county UAS perspective. I'm a drone operator, obviously, but I also come from a ex-air traffic control background for 20 plus years. So it caused all the major UK airports suddenly had to wake up, because they hadn't really anticipated drone interference as a major business continuity issue until Gatwick happened. And what everyone's looking at this now from it's a bit like the Loch Ness monster myth, isn't it? As in, somebody's mentioned it, and then people started suddenly seeing it in and taking photos of it. There's a ripple in the water, it must be Loch Ness. And there was always a danger of that.
Good example there, though, is they do actually have photos and video, which is something we don't have.
Well, maybe, but but the thing is, I know, perhaps not the best example, but nevertheless, the thing still wasn't there. It's just a ripple in the water. And I think since then, there's been a massive scramble from the counter UAS sector to suddenly offer their products into the marketplace, because there were a lot of customers. Suddenly, major airports were willing to invest multi-million, pounds worth of money into a counter UAS solution, and it's quite difficult.
I was going to say, you say that, but at the same time, this is the paradox of it all, if that's the right word, in that we've got Gatwick that invested properly, so they got the odds and merged in with the Metis and that, so they've got a proper system there that, it might not be quite as fancy as the RAF one, but it's not far off. You then got Heathrow, and I think they put something fancy on Big Airport. Newcastle's got D-Drone. Now, D-Drone, you can have that configured in a number of ways. I don't know how fancy that is, but you can have that where it's, the capabilities are similar to kind of
D-Drone,
Falcon Shield kind of thing. But the point is, they've put it in, but then a lot of other airports haven't got anything at all. So we've got East Midlands Airport, Glasgow, and it's all the airports that haven't got counter drone that are always the ones that are saying, we've got a drone problem, there's a drone.
Yeah, maybe so.
Thinking, why? And what they're doing is, I'll let you speak again in a minute. I was just going just to wrap up on that.
No.
What they're doing is, it's bizarre penny pinching. It looks like what they're generally doing is they're not investing in anything at all. They're just using the local police drone team and calling them up to bring aeroscope across. And sometimes they'll arrive the next day. But even still, you shouldn't be putting that on the police and for them to bring you. You should have some investment yourself. And then if that is then getting, if every airport had a built-in aeroscope to just get the DJI stuff, which generally it's going to be, especially if it's innocent. And then if it's somebody that's building something and deliberately being a problem, you then call it the military that can drop Falcon Shield. They've got it in they can deploy it by Chinook now. That's our country's contingency. So we've got a solution there, but we seem to just be in that panic. And just to go briefly on the East Midlands, the Freedom of Information on that came out because that was the Download Festival. I mean, they even tried to blag on Twitter that they had counter drone, and then it turns out no one was ever identified, no one arrested. And when the police had gone and looked at the reports, people were reporting air traffic that was taking off and landing. So again, it was, it's a bit of a farce considered the way they were selling it. But anyway, I'll shut up on that for now.
I mean, each airport does things slightly differently, and the ones that are sort of lagging behind in that are the ones that are at most risk of drone sort of interference. But I think the key point is we've mentioned about particular systems at particular airports, and this sort of this thought misconception perhaps that, oh well, I've got a particular system in, and therefore I've got a counter UAS counter drone solution. Actually, because I saw a comment in there was a question in the comments a minute ago. How do we actually stop this sort of activity? And it's a multi-layered sort of approach. You need to have a multi-dimensional solution to do it. It's not just about a detection system. It's about the ConOps. It's about security patrols. It's about understanding the risk profile to the airfield And I don't come from a counter UAS background. I'm just seeing it from a logical perspective, from how I would, if I was going to go and operate around if I was going to go and get footage around an airfield, how would I do it as an operator? So, and there's lots of technology out there, but technology is not just the silver bullet that we think it is. There's the human component in there. We need to understand what the risks are. We need to build those solutions so that they're effective. And lots of the major airports are doing it around the UK and Europe because they recognise, because they can't afford to lose literally millions of pounds worth of revenue just by shutting the airport down for even a couple of hours. They lose an enormous amount of revenue, which is it's a real business risk. And the smaller airports are going to suffer because they'll probably eventually get caught out because they don't want to invest, and that they'll have to catch up.
Now, call me stupid. People do. You're welcome to. But surely the airport authority has contacted DJI and said, has anybody requested a clearance from geofencing around this airfield during the timeframes mentioned? That would, at the very best, confirm that somebody had flown a drone there, because DJI has this information. You can't fly it, and it's geofenced. You can't fly there without unlocking. So DJI must have that information. If a DJI drone was used and unlocked, they could confirm, yes, there was a drone there at the very least. Has anyone done that?
I think they will do that behind the scenes, because that's what's happened with the football grounds when there's been occasions. They have been caught. So I'm sure. I mean, DJI are a bit cagey about saying what the process is, but they do say that if they get the appropriate approach,
come on, guys.
Then
all the story of this 4-year-old's event is on Wikipedia. So every time that someone speaks about Gatwick, just go to Wikipedia.
No, Wikipedia is wrong. I had to stop going on there because the sources that are considered reliable on Wikipedia are newspapers. And they won't.
It even has a comment from Brendan Schumann.
Yeah, I got that on. I had to fight to get that on. So anything on there that's accurate, the most of it is stuff I've had to sort of battle to get on there.
Brendan Schumann said that it was clear that the Gatwick incident had not involved the drone. That's what it is there. So.
Well, this is the latest one we're talking about, and
yes.
The balloon was mentioned in your in the comments, and GMI said, "Bruce, you're assuming it's a DJI drone." Yeah, that's also true. But then we've shown it's not, if you've asked, haven't you? But the reason I want to jump into the balloon is because the Loch Ness Monster comment of earlier, much like the Loch Ness Monster in the 50s, there were lots and lots of UFO reports based on what the Americans were doing with their balloon program that they had. And it's another thing, I cannot believe the fuss that's being made over this. There are around the world, if I had my PC on now, I'd quickly look up and see just how many round the world high altitude balloon flights are going on. There'll be loads. I bet you there's at least 20 in the sky right now. It's not a brand new threat. It's not something gee whiz and wow. It happens all the time.
And how far does the FAA's jurisdiction go up before it becomes part of space? Because it was well above the airline routes, wasn't it?
That's the famous next fight, and the only reason this one's come to cognizance is because it had deflated slightly. It went through at 40,000 feet. They normally go through at 100,000 feet, and they're not in the way of airliners. This one was in the way of airline traffic, so it had to be note-out. It had to be made note of. But it used to be, and Craig can correct me if I'm wrong, but it used to be 66,000 feet or flight level 660.
Well, that's how I remember it in the UK, but I don't quite know if that's an ICAO sort of thing.
Yeah,
so
I think it was pretty much everywhere, but that's why there's now we've seen the battle for that first 500 feet that we all kind of live in the hobby community has happened. There's now a battle for that flight level 660 and above, because just as below 500 feet wasn't useful to anyone until it became useful, above 660 wasn't useful to anyone other than SR-71s, Concorde and U-2s, but now it is. So it's funny. It's I'm on my high horse, and I better climb down. But it's coming back into view again.
What is funny, Gary? what is funny is how could someone say from the ground that the balloon was Chinese unless
It had remote ID, Louis. It had a remote ID.
Obviously.
Yeah.
So Lucas sent.
I think it was one of Lucas' remote ID units. Actually, they're very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we supply them. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
It was, but for sure, it was a huge payload and it was a big thing. And 3 did go through under the previous administration. So just hashtag just saying, but loads go through. And if you don't think that the Americans and us and all sorts of other people don't do exactly the same thing, then you're very foolish.
And those little Chinese lanterns, they send information back to China. You know, the ones you like with the little thing underneath it.
Yeah, they're banned in Scotland, aren't they? Which is a very, very good idea. Yeah, and the Global Hawk was quite low, Peppermint. I think was a tragic. I mean, the Global Hawk's still operating because they're a pretty tragic platform all around. But yeah, all right. I thought I might stir up more controversy about the balloon, I did, but you lot didn't want to bite about that. So I think Ian, a DJI getting rid of some of their FPV gear. What if I missed on that story?
Just before you jump in for that, can I just mention one thing before I forget?
Yes.
It was just to go on for the Dublin bit because I had a few bits that didn't make it into the news, but there was just little bit of rumblings I just thought you'd find interesting. Now apparently, the Dublin airport was looking into counter drone originally, and it hit a bit of a problem with the snake oil factor in that apparently they had one system that was come to be demoed, and I think they tried to test it with half dozen drones, and it didn't detect them. They then, they were then going to be testing Aeroscope, and apparently a dealer firmware flashed it just before the demo, and that somehow bricked it. I presume eventually it was sorted, but because it wasn't ready there and then, they never decided to revisit it, is what I'm told. And then we've had a situation where apparently they used one of these systems that actually tries to disable the drone, and apparently that landed it on a road. So the initial experience by the sound was a bit ropey. So by the end, the impression was they hadn't gone and got themselves a system, which they're kind of disputing. So maybe they had just got one more recently, or one's been brought in this week. But yeah, it sounds like when it comes to counter UAS, salespeople need to be careful about the way they go about selling it to airports and making sure that demos are very well structured and go well. Otherwise, ultimately it backfires on them, and it backfires on the industry.
The snake oil is very hard to handle.
It is very hard
to handle. But anyway, I just want to let you go. Continue on with what you were doing.
But if we speak to Gatwick, I can, because Louis loves talking about Gatwick. It's the only reason he's his favourite thing is talking about Gatwick.
Come on, I gave myself the trouble of going to Gatwick incident drones and check the date. It was 4 years ago. So
but we're talking about the Dublin one, which is like
talking about Dublin,
right
so
now.
get away with it.
Yeah, but
yeah, but what did I want to say? We have to remember that the people people that Luca will have been involved with as part of the industry, not part of that company, had actually been to Gatwick just before the famous Gatwick incident to lobby their products at Gatwick. So I tried to get. He came and went. I saw him, and he came and went. Where did he go? Craig was coming back, but he disappeared again. Okay. So yeah, there were people at Gatwick from a counter UAS company back in the day, and they because it's hard to hide people from this thing. And they're trouble. They're trouble.
Yeah,
they were trouble in the remote ID thing. But they're not a company anymore, really. Yeah. But anyway,
as far as the counter drone industry is concerned, I think people get the wrong impression about us. I mean, I welcome the counter drone industry. I just want it to be done professionally and slick. And we need them at every airport. The only way the drone community is going to stop getting grief is by the airports protecting themselves, knowing how to, and knowing how not to panic. Once that's actually smoothed out, everyone can just get on doing their own thing, and the world will be a lovely, sunny, happy place with smiles.
No, come on. The solution is to everyone to get Luca's remote ID things, and then get the subscription to oh god, it's not the DJI one, the one from our friend from god, I missed the name, for the permission to fly, and then problem solved. No need for counter detection because you know where all the drones are.
Yeah, but then you see, if you get a troll, which I can take the position of today, I just get a remote ID dongle, put a battery on it, put it in a balloon, a helium balloon, LED on it, load them over airports. There you go, all closed down because of balloons with LEDs in.
And I would like to just say that the RID is there not to solve everything. So if someone wants to just pose some danger, they are still free to do that. They still do the DIY drones, and they just plan the autonomous mission. You will never track it down. So there will be still those cases when someone wants to make the threat. But I do believe once we fast forward into 2026 or something, and most of the drones, the ones coming from the airport gift shops, will already have RID installed, it will be kind of harder for those accidents happen. But we will see. That's just my opinion.
Actually, this raises a very important issue, though. At the moment, the counter-UAS stuff is supposed to basically identify drones. Once this technology is commonplace, you don't even need to make a phone call suggesting there's a drone at an airfield. You just drive along, have a spoofing remote ID generator, stick it on a fence post, start it up, and walk away. And then all the alarms go off and the airport's closed, and they're looking for this drone, which is...
buy the drone.
Yeah, the remote ID spoofing its location. So you don't even know where to look. It says it's over there, but in fact, it's just sitting in a tree somewhere. This opens the door to far more disruption. In fact, remote ID could be the death of airports.
Well, I will little bit disagree. So yeah, the spoofing, jamming, and whatsoever on 2.4 gigahertz, which is now originally used for the RID, is pretty easy. But you can still kind of a little bit fight against that by using any kind of multilateration algorithms and basically trying to verify the data somehow. You will definitely not filter all of them, but at least you are able to verify if the signal is really coming from the location where it's supposed to be, roughly, not precisely, roughly. And I do believe this is, again, some eliminating criteria for people that would just simply drive the RID devices around the airports to basically don't put on false alarms and send FBI to them.
Dovranz makes a really good point there. There's a huge problem here in South Africa with GPS jammers, not around airports, because people are going to get the cash in transit vans, and they spoof the cash in transit vans and then they turn them upside down and open them up from the bottom because they're not protected underneath. So that's how. Yeah.
And they can steal the catalytic converter while they're at it.
Yeah, we get a lot of aviation problems with GPSs being spoofed for cash in transit van heists. Yeah, so that is definitely out there, and there is already an app for moving your position on your DJI drone, isn't there, to get yourself out of geofence.
Do you think this GPS spoofing could have explained the FedEx plane at another American airport this week?
The one that went over it was 70 odd feet, wasn't it, or something like that?
Yeah, the FAA's got much bigger problems than toys. They really need to get something sorted. This is the third incident like that this year, and only at beginning of February. I mean, sooner or later, someone's luck's going to run out, and hundreds of people will die, just like at Tenerife, or wherever it was. It's just, this is a looming problem. It's getting worse by the day, but they're chasing drones. What's going on?
Slow hanging fruit, isn't it? Look, we're nearly just coming up to an hour of darkness here for me. I do want to try and get out of Ian what's happening with the DJI FPV stuff, because I know a lot of people are interested in that. So what is going on? I'm
Yeah, but we don't.
interested
But we don't
at
have a
all.
lot of
You
people
tell me.
watching.
We don't.
That's fine. Yeah, that's true.
Twice tonight, Gar. Twice tonight, his idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of what's been inevitable or unsaid for some time is that. Sorry, my foot's just got caught in a cable. 1 second. Oh, cramp. Yeah, can you give me 10 seconds? My legs.
When
just-
technology bites back, eh? Goodness.
Yeah. That's
This
the
is-
USB getting him.
The B&D
No,
modem.
it's to
isn't it?
get the chair shot. He got the chair shot in with that. Did you see that?
Literally,
How
advertising.
cynical.
Age is a complete and utter pain in the ass. Sorry, I had my legs crossed. And I went to take my leg down, and I got it caught in a cable and cramp it. Right, I'm alive. I'm not dead yet. Right, okay. Let's start that again. DJI have unofficially end of lifed this, which is the original air unit. Now, it's been very hard to get hold of, probably for about a year. It's been available, but all of the dealers have now been told we're not doing it anymore. They're going to continue the Vista, which is this one, or the Air Unit Lite or Link, whichever we're going to call it, because it's made by DJI, but it's sold by about 3 brands, and they're then going to continue on with the O3 Air Unit and the Vista. Now, the chances are the Vista will probably end soon as well. There's a lot of whispers, and there's a lot of... I can't quite figure out if it's whispers or hoping of an O3 Lite, which is this thing, the new one, but a lighter, a smaller version of it. If that happens, they'll end of light this one as well. I think owners of the current FPV system, it's 4 years old now. And as Bruce will shout, analog lasts forever, which is quite right. And he is 100% right. But I think it is the end of days for the original system. And I think I've said probably over 3 years that DJI will end this at some point. It is inevitable. It's their business model. I'm not even sure we can get too bent out of shape, because 4 years is a fairly long time in any tech.
Unless you get cramp, that'll bend you out of shape.
But I can't think of, if we talk about computers, you're not going to easily get parts for 4 years, or sorry, not even parts, just, the same components that will work after 4 years. And whilst it's easy to complain in FPV that stuff doesn't last long, 4 years is a long time. And okay, does it mean it's going to end today? No, there are thousands upon thousands of air units still out there, used ones. The value will go up. If you have the system, you'll be fine for at least the next 2-3 years. Potentially your version 1 goggles will be able to be used for up to 6 years. I don't think that's unreasonable, if I'm honest. It's hard to really say nasty DJI is ending products. I'll be honest, I thought this was over 15. I put a video out 15 months ago saying it's over because I was told it was, and they extended
Getting in there early.
No,
I was. Progress.
It was officially over. They told all of their dealers it was over, but the irony was that was a period where I actually seemed to have a little bit of influence, and I put the video out and it all kicked off, and then and then they sort of went, no, we weren't doing that. Oops, we're not going to try that for a while. But it's hard to say it's a bad thing. As for what it looks in the future, probably an O3 Lite. I think they probably will. Jim, I said I hope they do disconnect the V2s. I think the V2s will come to end of days. DJI are really good at maximizing their product lines for productivity. So if we look at profitability, so if we look at what they do is they make a drone, and then they'll produce like a cheaper or more expensive model, very much based off the same thing, very similar chassis. So if we look at the Mini, we've got the Mini Pro, now the standard Mini. It's been the same with all of their products. They start with either a high-end model, which pays for all of the development cost and all of that engineering, and then 4 or 5 months later, they bring one out a third of the cost with most of the features, and it's normally pretty good value. And I think we'll probably have the same with the new goggles as well. But yeah, it's not end of the world. They're not going today. You won't be able to buy them new, but there are thousands and thousands, and they're very reliable. genuinely bomb-proof. Apart from I can break them, but I can break anything.
Well,
But you're the expert, man.
yeah, you are.
Look, I know your thoughts are, Bruce. I don't think it's hard to get upset, isn't it? Because your system's not going to stop working, is it? That's
it's the price of progress. Is some things get outdated. That's if we didn't deprecate these things, we wouldn't have new stuff, and then we wouldn't be happy.
No, so it's not end of the world.
Analog
They have
rules.
been uncharacteristically quiet, though, Gar. From a product point of view, if we look at the big 3-letter company, there's talk of the SDK coming out this week or next week for the Mini, for the Mini series, for the Pro, I think it is. But we're now into February, and very little from a drone point of view.
Apparently, there's a Cooper S version of the Mini coming out.
Is there?
Cooper S, faster.
But, I think probably if we walk around the corner, there'll probably be a new FPV drone in the next 2 months. That product's heading for 2+ years old.
Potato version 2.
The potato light. We're going to call it the fritter version. We're going to call it the
fewer
fritter.
calories.
Yeah. But they've got a lot of competition now, and even their own partners. And I use the word partners loosely, but the likes of iFlight, for instance, who clearly do partner with them because they were like on day one releasing products with O3 in. And stuff, and they've got this, which is their new small and lightweight. And I'll be honest, it's hard to say why the Avata is very good, but this is very good as well. And DJI have almost, from an FPV point of view, made their O3 system so good, you're basically able to build an FPV drone now as good, if not better, than the FPV drone. That's an interesting one, Bruce. Is that O3? He's muted.
No, this is the very first DJI drone. This is the one they sent out with the air unit. It's got an air unit in it, proper air unit.
Isn't it? Yeah.
But things haven't changed much, have they?
No, it's just smaller. And but it's interesting. There hasn't been a lot of products from them. I'll be honest, I've been following a lot, and whilst we don't usually talk about this, I've been following the company who are ex-DJI employees who are making the 3D printers, and I've been, because it does have overlap and there's a lot of interesting stuff there, and they're really smashing it. And actually what's quite fun is they're really doing in 3D printers what DJI's did in drones. And
you get the printer, Ian?
No, I haven't ordered one yet, Louis. I'm tempted to order an X1 Carbon, but I'm probably going to go with the P1P.
Yeah. And apparently you can't print near airports.
What's that?
I'm just interested if they do like they did with drones, how you make a 3D printer fly away.
Well, it's not about that. It's about the turnkey out the box solution. And that's what they've done. And they've got a new model called the P1P, which is £700 in the UK, delivered, fully functional, no setup other than take the packaging out, turn it on, and it works. And 3D printing has always been the most amazing and frustrating thing at the same time. I've got three printers in the back corner there. And
Ian, you're not in the drone business for very long. There was a life before DJI. Come on.
But it's interesting that they're the only
3D printers.
There's the only company to walk in and disturb. They've basically completely disturbed the 3D print industry, and it's 5 of the top people from DJI, including the man who developed the Mavic. So we're talking big names here, and it's just been interesting to watch because the parallels are there. Very closed source product, very repairable, only parts from them. They seem to have learned some of their lessons. It's not all perfect. The 3D printing community is up in arms, just like the drone community was. What's all this closed source stuff that I can't fix myself, that I can't get parts for? But they're delivering some interesting products. So, but coming back to DJI, I don't know. There's talk of all sorts around the corner. We're just going to have to wait and see what actually comes. It doesn't feel like there's anything exciting. Autel have been releasing products up in the GA, and there's been nothing really there. I find it hard to get excited about another camera drone right now.
But isn't that the industry? Boom, full
Yeah.
stop, boom.
I,
You know, it's
I
just
really think that DJI is going to push more for the enterprise level drones.
Yeah.
Because there's no much sense, because they've covered from the 400 mark up to the $5,000 or euros mark of drones. They have more or less all the slots for drones covered with the current lineup.
Yeah.
And I think one thing we do need this week is more videos of people showing us how to fly those toroidal props, or however you say it.
Those
Toroidal
props.
props.
I think we haven't had
This
enough.
whole
haven't had enough
can I have a
videos of
rant on
that.
this quickly, Gary? This whole
I was
MOT,
expecting a video from Bruce about the toroidal.
it's complete and
Yeah.
He only
utter.
shows.
I'm building my own. I've already got the holes for the middle.
The only thing that he shows us is crashing jets.
It's
Come on.
complete nonsense. It is. The whole internet has blown up. I've had so many people message me, and I'm like, I have no interest in this because I can already see it's nonsense. What you do is take the most noisy, most inefficient prop you can get, and then develop something which is like 5% better than that, and go, we've created something amazing. And it's just crap.
Go and look at the Quad Mover channel. He's got one. He built one. He flies those line of sight quads really fast, like hundreds of kilometers an hour. He's a really great guy, Quad Mover. And he built some of these toroidal props. And then he flew them with, I think it was 5 bladers or some other high blade counts. And they were much louder than the regular props on the 5 bladers. So, it just shows that it's a great piece of theory, but it's like biplanes. 2 wings must be better, but it's not really. When you look at, all it does is try and eliminate the tip vortices on the props. But in doing so, it creates other problems where you've got, because it's the propeller has to be a helical pitch. These are a straight pitch. All the ones I've seen are a straight pitch. So you've got parts of the prop operating at inefficient angles of attack. Parts are stalled and parts are underperforming. So it may be quieter, but it's nowhere near as efficient as a good helical pitch prop.
I see people printing them for computer fans now as well, telling us how much.
Yeah,
more
I did see
efficient
that
they'll
one.
be.
Yeah. And look, do we not think?
I put one in my fridge and one in my washing machine, and one,
I've got them. They're all my OnlyFans channel is littered with them.
Your OnlyFans.
Isn't it
on
funny
form.
the things the internet grabs onto? You had this MIT article, and let's be honest, it wasn't the easiest thing for people to go out and try. Some people have to go out and design it and then print it, and people have spent all this time messing with this, and just to realize actually it's a load of crap. And Bruce, it massively washes out. Did you see it on someone try it on a couple of really tight yaws? It like washes out instantly.
Yeah, that was that English guy, was it? I think he's an English guy. But and also I'm surprised actually, the Quad Mover guy, I think he built his out of PET G, and they held up to that kind of punishment. That's quite amazing.
Yeah,
3D printed.
3D printed props. Possibly the future, but
that is one thing I must admit I did expect to see a lot more of those letting go. So that almost shows you that 3D printing's come on a little bit if the materials and the printers are able to keep something that can stick together.
If you print with some of the carbon fiber filaments, it'll be solid. It'll be fine. It will be absolutely.
Actually, the carbon fiber is not any stronger, is it? It's just more rigid. If you look, the PLA is actually surprisingly strong, and because that guy that does all the tests, the CNC kitchen or whatever it is, he's tested them all. And I was surprised to see PLA stands up really well. It's really strong. It's
soft, isn't it, Bruce? Which helps. It doesn't just snap, and that's the bigger problem. But and we are starting to see a bit. This has, it rolls back into 3D printing, but the drone and 3D printing worlds collide a little bit here because people have been able to do something, run off, test it.
When I fly, everything collides.
It is nice that you do have the ability to that's nice. Let me go and make it and then try it. And that is the great thing. And the hobby does live on in that respect. Whilst we might not be, making drones in the traditional sense we always have, the maker community is still very much there, and people are still able to do something, build it, design it, print it, test it, and move forward. And that side of it's still really good.
I've noticed there's been a little bit of uptick in industry press releases. Not a lot yet. It's still January, February. It's always like this. Easter time, when the Northern Hemisphere starts getting better weather and starts flying again, it'll all start all start showing up again, when all the training and all the stuff's being done. But it's taking a little bit longer this year to catch up. But look, we've gone over an hour and a quarter here. Does anyone else have anything else? What's happening in your world, Craig? What's happening in the Eagle Eyes? Oh, it's confidential. You can't tell us.
Confidential.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not confidential at all. What's happening? I'm 3 weeks into a new role, trying to establish what the role, setting up a new business unit, technical services. What does that mean? Still, the strategy is still being developed, rolling out probably the first week of April, but a wide range of services. So watch this space, and you'll learn more.
TBC.
Yeah.
And then Louis, what's happening in the world of RG Pilot?
Oh, not much. Everybody running around to get the developers conference in place. We've already secured lots of the pizza dinner is already on track. So
That's the main thing then.
I think that we'll try to get some media coverage.
Pizzas. Well, in Canberra, you should be able to get them delivered, of course.
Yes, obviously, Canberra.
By drone.
We also got the Mac field, so things are going well, and new releases every day. Currently, there are a few interesting developments that we are doing. Mostly, Randy that is trying to make those big DJI gimbals to be controlled by autopilots. So the DJI RS2, RS. The big ones that have canvas, so we are is already managed to get them working. They're very big for drones, but they can be very useful for rovers. So it's a nice development. Also, a much better integration with gimbals that is also going on. So the features from that we all hate to love or love to hate from DJI, which is good integration with cameras, is coming to autopilot. So,
is there anything published on that, Louis? Or is he still just playing in the background?
The integration.
Gimbal stuff.
The gimbal, you get those Vietnamese ones that are already.
Yeah, no, on the DJI RS series, has there been anything published yet? Or?
Yeah, there's the Randy published his findings already.
Is it on the forum or is it?
It's on the forum. Okay. Yes, it's on the forum. But yeah. That's come on. I have one of those, the small DJI RS-C, which is not compatible with the development, doesn't have the way to control it. But the big one, the RS and RS2, are controllable, and some success already with those.
We should keep an eye on that. And then Bruce, you're still. I thought that was a great shame that, as Louis was alluding to, that foam jet blowing itself up in the fence.
We found the problem. Well. Someone forgot to energize the fence wires, so it was a cold cut. You know, the hot wire is much better, much cleaner cut. But yeah, that was a good crash. That one, we enjoyed that. Everyone had a good laugh. And the only other thing I'd have to add is, did you see that a paramotor operator got fined thousands of pounds in the UK for just about kicking some bloke and his son in the head on the beach? But of course, paramotors, they don't need remote ID or licensing or training or registration or anything, because they're much safer because they've got skin in the game.
Yeah. And your foyers, how are they going, Ian? Have you got any foyers that are interesting at the moment? Or
yeah, it's last time I was on, I said I had a case officer with 2 against Sussex Police. She's now got a 3rd. Jada loves me. She hates me.
Get in.
I don't know which one. Each one I've gone back with pages of supplementary information and evidence. So I'm properly fighting these with every bit of worth, and they will be really valuable should I get the answers. It doesn't look good. In my view, when I look at it, it doesn't look good for some police because the stuff I'm asking is perfectly reasonable and should have been put out. I've even got an email that was sent from one of the most senior police officers in the UK to Sussex Police, telling them they should even be transparent, and that's included as part of the evidence I'm putting in. So yeah, there's a fight going on there. They've got another case from one of the UAP guys where he's trying to get Stephen Roberts' emails to be released. So there's definitely a few things in there. I'm going to be putting in some more. I just need to do time. When I'm properly, trying to fight some of these difficult ones, it really is a sit down and write pages worth of justification. So I've got a few of those to do. So really, it's going to be about another 9 months' time till I'm at the end of doing all this. But yeah, I think it's going to be worth it in the end for just wrapping up these final few pieces. And there are some that if I get the answers, I will still be telling a few people in the media. So if this comes up in future, there'll be a few things there that are interesting. If everyone ever does a documentary or a drama or something on it, there'll be some good stuff there.
So tell me, Ian, how many Christmas cards did you get from these police departments and so forth? Or do I have to do an FOIA for you to get that information?
I don't think the other police forces, thankfully, have any problem with it. In fact, I've got them generally not messing me about. So it was like the East Midlands, that was Leicestershire Force. They just straight off gave me the answer. And in fact, every other force that dealt with Gatwick other than the Met, the question, I've not had many questions to ask of them. It was just mainly about finances and the officers they put there, but no difficulty at all. Questions answered. It's purely anyone that dealt very close with Sussex, so the DFT, to a degree, the Home Office and Sussex Police. They're all the really difficult ones, and well, you obviously know why. It's just the embarrassment. I think I'd have mentioned it last time, but the one nice piece was the DFT had kept it hidden for all these years. That the final sightings was just a police officer, and it was a Home Office that probably by error let that out in a freedom of information. But it was just a nice snippet to add to that, because we know that by then the RAF are on, their providers on record that there was no drone flying about. So all this stuff that's come out in the freedom of information, I've been able to be using with Dublin. So people that had forgotten about Gatwick, they've all started looking at it again. Already this week, there's been 1,000 extra views on the evidence Charles York gave to Parliament from people that are looking at it because of Dublin, and people are seeing the parallels and things that had been brought up about that in the past. Of them, people picked up on them and said, "Oh Jesus, that's such a parallel to where we are." Which kind of, and then it's been a good criticism as well to level at the airport of saying, these were all the lessons. Why have none of them been learned?
Why have you done
which makes it more difficult for them to be unreasonable about the whole matter. So it's helped, and it shows that if there are issues in the future with airports, there's a lot now just to go back to and say, look, these are all the lessons. Why are you not learning them?
Now, Ian, you should get yourself an orange bike and a Mini 2 and become an auditor, because you're halfway there, man.
I genuinely dare not get a drone, because I just think I would just be the target if I did anything wrong. If I had an ops manual and the ops manual said I'd have an orange high vis and I had a yellow one, I'd be in cuffs.
Quite right too. And then finally, we must thank, very brave of you indeed, to come along and take the rise out of us. This is not necessarily the most RID-friendly group. I think you've put yourself very well. You've just released your new products last Thursday. I wish you every success with those, and thank you very much for coming along. Hopefully we can twist your arm to come along and again get your expert opinion.
Send me one, I'll make a video.
Sorry. Yeah.
Send me one and I'll make a video.
No. You're the wrong guy.
I'm the right guy, is what I am.
No. The right guy is by your side. It's Bruce.
Yeah.
He's the right guy.
No, I might be biased. At least Ian will torture test it and see if it's destructible.
Nah, come on, Bruce. You're the right guy to test those things.
He'll prove it can be broken, that's for sure. He'll definitely prove it.
But the good idea is that the enclosure is 3D printed, so you can then print your own Ian.
There you go.
In the colour of your choice. Pink is a man's colour.
One thing I would like to do with one is what Kevin did with the Aeroscope, which is write a program where you could just write swear words and it would put them virtually in the sky.
Yes, good old Kevin. All right, on that note, on the good old Kevin note, let's draw a close to this. Dear viewer, wherever you are in the world, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again at 2100 GMT next week when perhaps something interesting will have happened. Thanks again, Luca. Thanks, Craig, Ian, Louis, and Bruce. Take care all. Look after yourself. See you again next week.
Thanks all. See you soon.
There's one click.